Maya Johnson never thought a late-night coffee run would change her entire life. The 24-year-old graphic designer had been pulling another all-nighter at her small advertising firm in downtown Seoul, where she had been working for the past 6 months after winning a prestigious international internship program. The fluorescent lights of the convenience store felt harsh against her tired eyes as she searched for her usual instant coffee. Seoul had been an adjustment. The language barrier, the cultural differences, and the occasional stares she received as one of the few black women in the corporate district. But Maya had learned to navigate it all with grace and determination. She was reaching for the coffee when someone else's hand touched hers. Looking up, she found herself staring into the darkest, most intense eyes she had ever seen. The man was tall, impeccably dressed even at midnight, with perfectly styled black hair and features that looked like they belonged in a magazine. "Sorry," she said in her still-developing Korean, quickly pulling her hand back. "No need to apologize," he replied in perfect English, his voice smooth and controlled. "You were here first." Maya noticed the expensive watch, the tailored coat, the way he carried himself with an air of someone accustomed to being in charge. Everything about him screamed wealth and privilege. She grabbed her coffee and headed to the counter, but she could feel his eyes following her. As she paid, the cashier's phone buzzed with a news notification. Maya caught a glimpse of the screen and froze. There, in a business news headline, was a photo of the same man who had just spoken to her. The article read, "Lee Min-jun, CEO of Lee Entertainment, announces expansion into international markets." Her coffee nearly slipped from her hands. Lee Min-jun wasn't just wealthy, he was Korean corporate royalty. His family's entertainment empire was worth billions, and his face was regularly featured in business magazines and society pages. Outside the store, Maya tried to process what had just happened. She had touched hands with one of the most powerful men in South Korea. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. "Excuse me," a voice called behind her. She turned to find Min-jun standing in the doorway, his own coffee in hand. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his eyes despite his polished appearance. "You work late, too," he observed, not really asking. "Deadlines don't respect normal hours," Maya replied, surprised by her own boldness in responding. Something flickered across his face, surprise, maybe even amusement. "Indeed they don't." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, two night owls in an empty street. Maya knew she should walk away, return to her tiny apartment, and pretend this encounter never happened. Men like Lee Min-jun didn't associate with women like her. "I haven't seen you in this neighborhood before," he said, and Maya detected genuine curiosity in his voice. "I've been working at Kim and Associates for about 6 months," she explained. "The advertising firm 3 blocks down." "Ah," Min-jun nodded. "You're American?" "African-American, yes. From Chicago originally." If the information surprised him, he didn't show it. But Maya caught the way his eyes lingered on her face, as if he was memorizing her features. "What brings you to Seoul?" he asked. "Adventure, I suppose, and the opportunity to work with some of the best creative minds in Asia." Maya found herself relaxing, despite knowing who he was. "What about you? Do you always do your own coffee runs at midnight?" A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Sometimes the CEO needs to escape his tower." They talked for another 20 minutes, standing on the empty sidewalk as the city hummed quietly around them. Maya learned that Min-jun had studied at Harvard, that he spoke 4 languages, and that he had a weakness for American jazz music. She told him about her art, her dreams of opening her own design studio, and her love for Korean street food. When Min-jun finally looked at his phone, they both realized how much time had passed. "I should let you get back to your deadline," he said, though he made no move to leave. "And you should return to your tower," Maya replied with a teasing smile. Perhaps, he said, then seemed to make a decision. Maya Johnson from Chicago who works at Kim and Associates. Would you like to have coffee again? Somewhere with actual chairs next time. Maya's heart skipped. This was dangerous territory. Getting involved with someone like Lee Min-jun could only lead to complications. But looking into his eyes, she saw something that made her forget about logic and consequence. I'd like that, she heard herself say. Min-jun smiled. A real smile this time, not the polished one she imagined he used in boardrooms. Tomorrow evening? There's a small cafe near Hongdae that serves excellent Ethiopian coffee. The fact that he had chosen Ethiopian coffee, clearly thinking of her heritage, made something warm bloom in Maya's chest. Tomorrow evening, she agreed. As they parted ways, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she had just stepped into a story much bigger than herself. She walked home through the quiet streets, her mind replaying every word of their conversation. Back in her apartment, she finally looked up more information about Lee Min-jun online. The articles painted a picture of a brilliant but notoriously private businessman who had taken over his family's company at 28 and tripled its value in 3 years. There were photos of him at charity galas, business conferences, and cultural events, always impeccably dressed and composed. But there were also hints of a more complex story, mentions of family pressure, expectations, and the weight of carrying on a legacy. Maya began to understand why he might need to escape his tower occasionally. As she finally settled down to work on her project, Maya caught her reflection in her laptop screen. Her dark skin glowed against the backdrop of her small apartment. Her natural hair framed her face in soft curls, and her eyes held an excitement she hadn't felt in months. Tomorrow evening couldn't come soon enough. But even as anticipation bubbled within her, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered warnings about the differences between their worlds. Maya pushed the doubts aside. Sometimes the best adventures began with a simple coffee run at midnight. The small cafe in Hongdae was everything Min-jun had promised and more. Tucked between a vintage bookstore and a traditional tea house, it felt like a secret hideaway from the bustling Seoul streets. Maya arrived 5 minutes early, her palms slightly sweaty despite her attempt to stay calm. She had changed outfits 3 times before settling on a simple black dress with a colorful scarf that brought out the warm undertones in her skin. Professional but approachable, she had decided. Min-jun arrived exactly on time, and Maya noticed he looked different somehow. Gone was the formal business attire, replaced by dark jeans and a soft gray sweater that made him appear younger and more approachable. "You found it easily?" he asked. And Maya detected a hint of nervousness in his voice that made her feel better about her own anxiety. "Your directions were perfect," she replied, accepting the chair he pulled out for her. The Ethiopian coffee was indeed excellent, rich and complex with notes Maya hadn't tasted since her last visit to her favorite cafe in Chicago. As they sipped their drinks, conversation flowed naturally. Min-jun asked about her work, and Maya found herself describing her latest project, a campaign for a Korean skincare brand trying to break into the American market. "The challenge is bridging cultural perceptions of beauty," she explained. "What works in Seoul might not resonate in Chicago or New York." Min-jun listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that showed he genuinely understood the complexities of her work. In return, he told her about his own challenges, managing traditional family expectations while trying to modernize a century-old company. "My grandfather built Lee Entertainment from nothing," he said, stirring his coffee thoughtfully. "My father expanded it across Asia. Now I'm supposed to take it global, but every decision I make is scrutinized by the board, the media, and especially my family." "That sounds incredibly pressure-filled," Maya said softly. "It is," Min-jun admitted. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to make choices just for myself, without considering the impact on stock prices or family reputation. As the evening progressed, Maya discovered layers to Min-jun she hadn't expected. He was passionate about music, collecting vintage jazz records and supporting young Korean artists trying to break into international markets. He spoke about social responsibility and his desire to use his company's influence for positive change. When he walked her to the subway station, neither wanted the evening to end. "Would you like to see a jazz performance this weekend?" Min-jun asked as they reached the entrance. "There's a small club in Itaewon that features incredible musicians." "I'd love that," Maya said, and meant it completely. Their second date led to a third, then a fourth. Within a month, they had fallen into an easy rhythm of meeting for coffee, attending cultural events, and taking long walks through different Seoul neighborhoods. Min-jun introduced Maya to hidden gems in the city: rooftop gardens, underground art galleries, and family-owned restaurants that served food nowhere else could match. Maya showed Min-jun her Seoul, the vibrant street art in Hongdae, the late-night food markets, the small venues where emerging artists performed. She taught him to see his city through fresh eyes, to notice the creativity and energy that existed beyond the corporate towers. The first time Min-jun kissed her was during a spring evening in Namsan Park. They had been talking about their dreams, their fears, their hopes for the future. The conversation had grown quiet, and Maya had looked up to find Min-jun watching her with an expression of such tenderness that her breath caught. "Maya," he said softly, and then his lips were on hers, gentle and sure and perfect. When they broke apart, both were breathless. The city lights twinkled below them, and Maya felt like she was living in a beautiful dream. But dreams, she soon learned, had a way of colliding with reality. The first sign of trouble came when a gossip blog published a blurry photo of them leaving the jazz club together. The caption read, "Lee Entertainment CEO spotted with mysterious foreign woman. New romance or business deal?" Min-jun showed her the article on his phone, his jaw tight with frustration. "I'm sorry," he said. "This is exactly what I hoped to avoid." "It's not your fault," Maya replied, though she felt a chill looking at the photo. In the grainy image, she looked like an outsider, someone who clearly didn't belong in Min-jun's world. The second sign came during a family dinner that Min-jun had finally worked up the courage to invite her to. Maya had spent hours preparing, choosing a conservative but elegant outfit, practicing basic Korean phrases, researching proper etiquette. The Lee family home was a stunning traditional hanok in Bukchon, beautifully preserved and obviously worth millions. Min-jun's mother, Mrs. Lee, was polite but cool, speaking primarily in rapid Korean that Maya could only partially follow. His father barely acknowledged her presence, focusing instead on business discussions with Min-jun. The evening felt like a test that Maya wasn't sure she was passing. "Your Korean is improving," Mrs. Lee said in careful English as they sat for tea after dinner. "Though I imagine it's quite difficult to truly understand our culture coming from such a different background." "I'm still learning every day," Maya replied diplomatically, though she caught the subtle implications in the older woman's words. Later, as Min-jun drove her home, the silence in the car was heavy with unspoken concerns. "They need time," he said finally. "They're not used to someone like me," Maya finished quietly. Min-jun's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "To change, to anything that challenges their expectations." Maya stared out the window at the passing lights. She understood what he couldn't quite say, that she represented everything his family had never imagined for their son's future. The pressure intensified when business magazines began speculating about the impact of Min-jun's unconventional relationship on his professional reputation. Board members started making subtle comments about stability and appropriate partnerships. Maya began to notice the stares when they appeared in public together, the whispers that followed them. Despite the mounting external pressure, their relationship only grew stronger. Min-jun was attentive, thoughtful, and completely devoted when they were alone together. He surprised her with small gifts that showed how well he knew her. Art supplies for her personal projects, books by her favorite authors, tickets to exhibitions she had mentioned wanting to see. Maya had never felt more cared for or understood. Min-jun saw her not just as an exotic novelty, but as a complete person with dreams, ambitions, and thoughts worth hearing. He supported her career aspirations and encouraged her to pursue freelance projects that excited her. But late at night, lying in her small apartment after their dates, Maya couldn't ignore the growing weight of their situation. She loved Min-jun deeply, but loving him meant stepping into a world where she would always be scrutinized, always be different, always be the outsider who had somehow captured the prince's heart. The breaking point came during a company event that Min-jun had asked her to attend. Maya had chosen her outfit carefully, an elegant navy dress that was sophisticated but not attention-grabbing. She wanted to blend in, to prove she could fit into his world. But the moment they arrived, Maya felt every eye in the room turn toward them. Conversations stopped, smiles became forced, and she found herself the subject of barely concealed curiosity and judgment. Throughout the evening, Min-jun stayed close to her side, introducing her to colleagues and business partners with obvious pride. But Maya could see the strain on his face, the way he had to work harder to maintain his professional relationships while defending their personal choices. During a brief moment when Min-jun was pulled away for an urgent business discussion, Maya found herself alone with several wives of company executives. Their polite questions felt like subtle interrogations about her background, her intentions, and her understanding of Korean social expectations. "It must be so different for you here," one woman said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Korean society can be quite traditional about certain things." Maya maintained her composure, but inside she felt the weight of every stare, every whispered comment, every raised eyebrow. She realized that no matter how much she and Min-jun loved each other, she would always be fighting an uphill battle for acceptance in his world. When Min-jun returned to her side, he immediately sensed her discomfort. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. Maya looked around the room filled with people who would never fully accept her, then back at the man she loved who was trying so hard to bridge two incompatible worlds. "I need some air," she said, and Min-jun immediately escorted her to a quiet balcony overlooking the Han River. Standing on the balcony overlooking the Han River, Maya felt the cool night air against her skin as she tried to process the evening's events. Min-jun stood beside her, his hands gripping the railing so tightly his knuckles had turned white. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I should have prepared you better for tonight." Maya turned to look at him. This man who had somehow become the center of her world in just a few short months. "Min-jun, you can't protect me from reality forever. This is your world, and I don't know if I belong in it." The words hung heavy between them. Min-jun's face showed the pain of hearing his own fears spoken aloud. "Don't say that," he said firmly. "You belong wherever you choose to be. These people, their opinions, they don't define your worth." "But they define your life," Maya replied softly. "Every business decision you make is scrutinized. Every relationship you have affects your family's reputation. I've seen what dating me has cost you already." Min-jun was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the city lights reflecting on the water. "Would you rather I chose an easier path? Someone my parents would approve of immediately? Someone who fits their expectations?" Maya's heart ached at the thought. "I want you to be happy, and I want to be with you. But I also don't want to be the reason you lose everything you've worked for." "Then let me decide what's worth losing," Min-jun said, turning to face her fully. "Maya, I've spent my entire life making choices based on what other people expected. For the first time, I've found someone, that makes me want to make choices based on what I want." His words were interrupted by his phone buzzing urgently. Minjun glanced at the screen, and his expression darkened. "What is it?" Maya asked. "A reporter has been asking questions about you, about us. They're planning a story about my unconventional relationship and how it might affect Lee Entertainment's traditional image." Maya felt her stomach drop. "What kind of questions?" Minjun read from his phone. "They want to know about your family background, your financial situation, whether this is a serious relationship or just a phase." His voice grew angry. "They're treating our relationship like a business transaction." "Maybe we should take a break," Maya said suddenly, the words surprising even herself. "Just until things calm down. Until you can figure out how to handle the pressure without sacrificing everything." Minjun's phone clattered to the ground as he reached for her hands. "No, absolutely not. Maya, look at me." She met his eyes, seeing a determination there she had never witnessed before. "I love you," he said simply. "Not because you're exotic or different or challenging. I love you because you're brilliant and kind, and you see possibilities where others see problems. You've made me remember who I am underneath all the expectations and titles." "Min Jun." "I'm not finished," he said gently but firmly. "Tomorrow, I'm calling a press conference. I'm going to announce our relationship officially, and I'm going to make it very clear that Lee Entertainment stands for innovation, international partnerships, and embracing the future rather than clinging to the past." Maya stared at him in shock. "You can't do that. The board, your family, the stockholders will adapt or find themselves working with someone else," Min Jun said with a conviction that took her breath away. "I've been CEO for 3 years, Maya. I've increased profits, expanded internationally, and positioned this company for long-term success. If they want to destroy that over who I choose to love, then maybe they don't deserve the company I've helped build." The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind that tested everything Maya thought she knew about love, courage, and standing up for what mattered. Minjun kept his word about the press conference. Standing before a room full of reporters and cameras, he spoke clearly and confidently about his relationship with Maya, describing her as an accomplished professional who had brought fresh perspectives to his understanding of international markets. "Love doesn't recognize borders or backgrounds," he said, looking directly into the cameras. "Lee Entertainment has always prided itself on excellence and innovation. I've found both of those qualities in Maya Johnson, and I'm proud to have her in my life." The initial reaction was exactly what they had expected: shock, criticism, and intense media scrutiny. Several board members demanded emergency meetings. Minjun's mother called him every day for a week, alternating between disappointment and attempts at emotional manipulation. But something unexpected happened alongside the criticism. Messages of support began pouring in from young professionals, international business partners, and even some traditional Korean families who had their own stories of love crossing cultural boundaries. Maya watched from her apartment as Min Jun fielded interview requests, business meetings, and family confrontations with a grace and strength she had never seen before. He had found his voice, and he was using it to defend not just their relationship, but his vision for a more inclusive future. The turning point came during a board meeting that Maya wasn't supposed to know about, but which Min Jun described to her afterward with a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "They gave me an ultimatum," he told her as they walked through a quiet park near her apartment. "End the relationship or resign as CEO." Maya's heart stopped. "What did you tell them?" Minjun smiled, and it was the freest, most genuine expression she had ever seen on his face. "I told them they had 48 hours to decide whether they wanted a CEO who made decisions based on fear and tradition, or one who made decisions based on innovation and integrity, because I wasn't going to be both. And this morning, the chairman of the board called. They want to meet with both of us. They want to understand what we bring to each other and to the company. Maya felt a mixture of terror and excitement. They want to meet with me? The company is expanding into African markets next year, Minjun explained. Your insights into international branding and cross-cultural communication could be invaluable. They're beginning to see you not as a liability, but as a potential asset. The board meeting was unlike anything Maya had ever experienced. Sitting in a conference room with some of the most powerful business leaders in South Korea, she presented her ideas for culturally sensitive international marketing strategies. She discussed the growing influence of diverse consumers in global markets and the importance of authentic representation in international branding. By the end of the meeting, 3 board members had asked for her business card, and the chairman had invited her to submit a formal proposal for consulting on their African expansion. You were magnificent, Minjun told her as they left the building together. But the real victory came a month later, during another family dinner. This time, when Maya arrived at the Lee family home, Minjun's mother greeted her with a genuine smile. "Maya, dear," Mrs. Lee said in careful but warm English, "I've been reading about your work with international campaigns. I had no idea you were such an accomplished professional." Over dinner, the conversation flowed more naturally. Maya shared stories about her childhood in Chicago, her struggles to establish herself as a designer, and her dreams of building bridges between cultures through creative communication. When Minjun's father asked her opinion on the company's expansion strategy, Maya felt like she was finally being seen as more than just her son's girlfriend. Later, as Maya helped Mrs. Lee in the kitchen, the older woman spoke quietly. "I owe you an apology," she said. "I let my fears about change prevent me from seeing who you really are. Minjun is happier than I've seen him in years, and his confidence in business has grown so much since he met you. I was wrong to judge you based on my own limitations." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you for saying that. I know this isn't easy for anyone." "The best things rarely are," Mrs. Lee replied with a knowing smile. 6 months later, Maya found herself standing on the rooftop of Lee Entertainment's headquarters, looking out over Seoul as the sun set behind the mountains. The city had become truly home now, not just a place she was visiting. Her consulting business had taken off beyond her wildest dreams. Word of her work with Lee Entertainment had spread, and other companies were eager to tap into her expertise in cross-cultural marketing and international brand development. "Penny for your thoughts?" Minjun said, stepping up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "Just thinking about how much has changed," Maya replied, leaning back against his chest. "A year ago, I was just an intern hoping to gain some international experience. And now you're the woman who taught Seoul's most traditional companies that love and business both benefit from embracing change," Minjun said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. Maya turned in his arms, studying his face in the golden evening light. "Do you ever regret it? The fights, the stress, everything you had to go through?" Minjun's expression grew serious. "Maya, before you, I was living a life that belonged to everyone except me. My choices were made by committee, my relationships were strategic, and my happiness was always secondary to expectations. You didn't just give me love. You gave me the courage to live authentically." "You gave me the same thing," Maya said softly. "You showed me that I didn't have to make myself smaller to fit into someone else's world, that I could bring my whole self to this relationship and be valued for it." As the first stars began to appear over Seoul, Minjun reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Maya Johnson from Chicago," he said, dropping to one knee as the city sparkled below them. "You've broken down every wall I built around my heart. Will you help me build something beautiful in its place? Will you marry me?" Through tears of joy, Maya looked down at the man who had fought for their love against every obstacle, who had chosen courage over comfort, authenticity over approval. "Yes," she whispered, then said it louder, her voice carrying across the rooftop. Yes, Minjun. Forever. Yes. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Maya realized that their story had never been about a black girl changing a Korean prince or about breaking walls and overcoming differences. It had been about two people finding the courage to be completely themselves with each other and discovering that love was strongest when it was built on a foundation of mutual respect, shared dreams, and the brave choice to face the world together. The city of Seoul stretched out before them, full of possibilities and promises. And in that moment, standing on top of the world with the man she loved, Maya knew that every challenge they had faced had been worth it for this perfect beginning of their forever.